Hi, this is Matt with AppliancePartsPros.com. Today we'll be showing you how to repair your appliance. Remember, anytime you work on an appliance, make sure it's unplugged or the circuit breakers are off so there's no chance of electrocution. Also make sure you turn off your hot and cold water supplies. In this video we're going to show you how to change out the LG washer bearings and seal. It's going to be a very easy repair and it'll only take a few minutes to show you how to do it. If you already have these, great. If not, you can click on the link below or get it at AppliancePartsPros.com. When you open up the packages, you're going to get the new bearings and the new seal. These are all sold individually, so you have to buy them all individually. They're all changed usually at the same time, so we made one video to cover it all. The bearings and seal are located in the back of the outer tub. The main reason to be changing them out is if the bearings have gone bad and you're getting grinding noise, or the seal is bad and you're getting water leaking out of the back of the tub. Now we can take the top off. We're going to remove the lower screws that hold the bracket to the body. Once we get those screws out, we can pull the top off. Now we can pull the top back. You want to pull it back just about 1.5 inches so you can clear the stoppers. If you go back too far, you won't be able to lift it up because it'll hit the stoppers on the other side. So you just want to go about 1.5 inches back. Next we can pull out the detergent drawer and press down on the center in the back to release it so we can pull it all the way out. Now we can remove the 2 Phillips screws. Next we have to disconnect these wire harnesses right here. So we're going to untwist these little holders and get the wires out. Then we can pull the wires out and disconnect them. All you have to do is find the release tab and press on it and pull it apart. Now we can unsnap the front control panel. There's some locking tabs that go along the whole length of it. So we're going to get those started and pull the panel off. Once you get them all off, you can lift the panel up a little bit, lean it forward, and feed these wires that we just disconnected through the hole, and then you can pull the panel off. Now we can open up the door and remove the clamp that holds the gasket on. There's a spring located at the bottom that we can pry off. So we want to take a small flathead screwdriver and carefully get behind it so we don't damage the gasket. Once you get behind it, you can lift it out of the groove and go all the way around the door to release the gasket. Now that we have the clamp off, we can take the gasket and kind of get it off of the front panel so it's out of the way. And then we can reach in behind the door switch and disconnect the wire harness from the door switch. Press the release tab and pull it off the switch. Now that we have that disconnected, we can close the washer door. And then we can take a small flathead screwdriver and open up this small access panel right here. It's going to come right off. There's nothing holding it on. Now that we have the cover off, we have access to inside. There's actually a little drain hose right here. If you're going to be working on the pump or any of the hoses on the inside, you want to take this plug out and make sure you have a dish on the floor and drain it into the dish. You're not going to get all the water out, but it's going to make it a lot less messy. Once you get it completely drained or as much water out as you can put the cap back in, and then we can use our Phillips screwdriver to remove the screw that holds in the trim on this panel. Once you have the screw out, we can pull this little panel out and just feed the drain plug through it. Now that we have the trim out of the way, we can remove the Phillips screw that holds the front panel on. Now we can remove the 4 screws that go across the top and hold the panel on. We're going to use our Phillips screwdriver to take them out. When you're taking the last screw out, you want to make sure that you hold the panel onto the washer There's nothing else really holding it on, and it may fall off. Now that you have all the screws off, we can lift the front panel off the washer. There are a few different variations of this gasket. Ours only has one hose on it at the top. There are some that also have a hose at the bottom, so you want to make sure you remove that too. We have to disconnect this hose at the top. It's attached to a little white fitting in there, so we can take a screwdriver and get it started. Once you got it loose, all you have to do is pull it off. To get the gasket off the tub, we have the same type of ring clamp that we had on the other one. We can use our flathead screwdriver and get behind the spring and pull the retaining ring off. Once you have it started off, you can just pull the whole gasket off. Now that we have the gasket off, we can remove these upper and lower tub weights. They're going to come off with a 10mm socket. We're going to take them off to make it easier to get the tub in and out. Now that we have the screws out, we can remove the upper weight and set it aside. Now that we have the upper one off, we can take the lower one off. And once you have them out, you can take it off and set it aside. On the top of the tub, we have to remove a few hoses. We're going to use our Phillips screwdriver and loosen these up so we can take them off. If you have to hold the wing nut, make sure you do. Alright, now that you have it loosened up, we can pull it off the tub. The second one we have to disconnect is just pressed on. There's no clamp on it, so just pull up on it and take it off. The third one is this hose, which the clamp is on the other side. So we'll have to spin around and reach down in there and loosen it up. You're not going to be able to see us do it though. Again, if you have to, reach down with your other hand and hold the wing nut. Once you have it loosened up, you can go ahead and lift it off the tub. Also at the bottom of the tub, we have to disconnect the thermistor plug. All you have to do is release the tab and pull it off. Then we can take our wire cutters and cut this zip tie off that holds the wire harnesses in. And then we can remove the wires on the heater and the grounding strap. The grounding strap is held in with a 10mm nut. We're going to use our socket and take it off. We have to remove this access panel. It's held in by 4 Phillips screws, which we're going to take out to take the panel off. Now that you have those screws out, we can take the panel off. On the back of the machine, we have to remove everything that's attached to the tub. So we're going to reach in with our Phillips screwdriver and remove the clamp from the hose where it holds it onto the tub. Now that we have the clamp loose, we can reach in and pull it off the tub. Now we can remove the screws that hold the pressure chamber on. Now we're going to remove these 3 Phillips screws so we can get the wires loose so we can take off the rotor assembly. Next we can remove the 17mm bolt that holds this assembly on. If you can't get it to turn, remember to hold this. And if you still can't get it to turn, you can have somebody hold the inside of the drum. Once you have the bolt out, we can pull the assembly off. Now we can use our 10mm socket and go around and remove all the bolts that hold the stator assembly in. As you're taking this last one off, probably want to make sure you hold this in place so it doesn't fall off as you're loosening it up. Now that you have all the bolts out, we can take the assembly and rotate it down and disconnect these two wire harnesses from the switches. This one you need to squeeze and then disconnect. On this side you just have to press on the release and then disconnect it. Now we can remove the locking pins that hold in the shock absorbers. There's two shocks on the front and one in the back. They all pretty much pull out the same way. We're going to take a 13mm socket on the front ones and push it over the pin so it releases the locking tab, and then we can pull it through the front with the pliers. Now that we have the pin out of the way, we can get the shock absorber out from the tub and swing it down out of the way. We're going to take the one out on the other side the exact same way. Once you have the pin out, you can get the shock absorber out and rotate it out of the way. To take out the rear locking pin, we found that the socket won't fit between the tub and the pin. We found a 12mm wrench works pretty good to depress the locking tab. So just work it on, and then you can pull the other side off with your pliers. Same as the front shock absorbers, you want to get it off the tub and lay it out of the way. Now that we have everything disconnected from the tub, we can take the springs off. There's one on each side. There's a little cover we have to take off. If you have to pop it off with a screwdriver, you can use a small flathead. And then you can lift up on the spring to get it out of the holder here. And you can lower it down. Take the spring out of the tub and hook it back in here so it's there when we put the tub back in. The one on the other side is done exactly the same way. Take the spring off the same way on this side of the tub, but once you get it off, you can hook it back onto the retainer. Now that we have everything off the tub, we can lift it out and set it on the floor. It is a little bit heavy, so if you have anybody that can help you, make sure they do. Now that we have the tub out of the washer, we put it up on some wood blocks to support it so we can go around and remove all the bolts with our 10mm socket. Now that you have all the bolts out from around the tub, you can separate the two sides. It should come apart fairly easily, but if you have to, you can stick a screwdriver in there and pry it open. The seal has a video of its own, but anytime you split the tub, it's a good idea to change it so you don't have a leak when you put it back together. When you get the front half of the outer tub off, you want to make sure that none of these scratch marks where the tub has been hitting have actually made a hole in the front half of the tub. If it's worn pretty bad or pretty thin, you want to go ahead and change out the tub front too. Now that we have the upper half of the tub off, you can lift the inner tub out. If it doesn't lift out, then it could be that the bearing is stuck in there, so we have to flip the tub over and pound it out. You want to put your blocks of wood on the plastic part of the tub so you can bang the inner tub out. Before you try to bang this out, you can put some rust buster through it, or if you have any type of penetrating oil, you can put it on there and let it sit for a minute. Now that you have the penetrating oil in there, you want to take a piece of wood and put it over the end of the shaft to protect it, and then you can hit it with a hammer and pound it out. Now that you have it out, we can lift the outer tub away. Now that we have the inner basket out, we can see that the shaft is all rusted up, and the main problem is that the spider arms are cracked and the aluminum is falling apart. So when you get your tub out, if you see that it's like this, you're going to have to change out the spider assembly. If it's just dirty, you can clean up the shaft with a wire brush and get it ready to put it back in. Now that we know the spider is messed up, we can set the inner tub aside and put the outer tub onto the blocks. Now that we have the tub back on the blocks, we can take a flathead screwdriver and just pry the old seal out. You don't have to worry about trying to save it or anything. We want to clean all this gunk out on each side of the bearings, and we're going to take and put some of our penetrating oil, the rust buster. We're going to run it around the edge of the bearing to see if it can soak in. So when we try to drive these out, it'll make it easier to get out. And I'm going to do the backside bearing too. It is important to clean out the excess oil once the bearings are removed because it can cause the tub material to weaken. Now that we have everything soaking in the penetrating oil, we're going to take our punch and go through the first one down into the second one, and we're going to knock the lower one out first. Now that we knocked the bearing out the bottom side, we can flip it over and look at it. Now that we have this bearing out, we can pound the other one through the other way. Now that we have both bearings out, you can use a nylon or brass brush to clean out the bearing area. Don't use a steel brush because it may damage the tub material. Here's the old bearings and seal next to the new ones. If you already have one of these, great. If not, you can get it at appliancepartspros.com. Before we put the bearings into the tub, we want to take a little bit of liquid soap and put just a very thin coating all the way around both of them to make it easier to put them into their spots. Alright, to put the new bearing in, we're going to set it into place and tap it with a hammer. If you have a rubber mallet or a brass hammer, you can use that. In this video, we're going to use a metal hammer. Be extra careful when using a metal hammer and only tap the outer edges of the bearing lightly so you don't damage the bearing or tub. You want to make sure you pound it down so it's flush with this metal surface. Now that we have this down, we can flip it over and put the inside one in. Alright, same as the other one. We're going to set it down nice and flat and get it started with the hammer. So once you get it all the way down, we're going to have to use a punch to install it. If you have a brass punch, you can use that or even a piece of wood. In this video, we're going to use a metal punch. Remember, make sure you only tap the outer edges lightly so that you don't damage the bearing or tub. Once you have the bearing down and flush, we can put the seal back in. In order to make it easier to push the seal back in, you don't want to put any grease or anything on it, but we can run just a thin coating of laundry soap around it. Don't put a lot on there, just a little bit. Once you have it all the way around, we can take and push the seal in. Once you have the seal pushed in so it's flush all the way around, we can put the washer back together. Now we can set the inner tub into the back half of the outer tub. We want to set it down slowly so the shaft doesn't damage the seal as we lower it down. Alright, you want to look down inside the tub, make sure you're getting it right in the center of the hole, and then slowly lower it down. You'll probably feel it stop and then settle down that last inch or so until it's down around the water seal. Alright, now that we have the inner tub back in, we can put the front half of the outer tub back on. When you lower the front half of the tub onto the back half of the tub, you want to make sure that the heating element is guided down into its bracket so it's properly positioned. Now we're going to go around and put all the bolts back in, and then we'll go around and snug them down, and then go around again and tighten them up. All right, to tighten them down, we're going to use our 10mm socket with a long extension. All right, now we can go around and snug them all down. Now that we have the tub put back together, we took it off the blocks and we're going to lift it back inside the washer. It's kind of heavy, so if you need somebody to help you, make sure you grab them. We're going to very carefully set it in there so we can get it up on the springs and then put the shocks in. Same as when we took the washer out, we're going to lift the spring out and hook it through the tub, and then lift it back up and put it into the frame. Now that you have the spring in, we can put the retainer back in. We can do the same thing on the other side. We're going to take the spring off the top and hook it through the tub. And get somebody to help you if you need to, 'cause remember it's pretty heavy. All right, now that we have it in the tub, we can lift it up and put it into the frame. Once you have it into the frame, you can put the little locking tab back in. All right, now we can put in the shock absorbers. We'll put the one in the back in first. All you have to do is pull it back and stretch the shock absorber up to line up the hole so we can put the pin in and slide the pin through. You want to make sure you push it far enough so the locking tab comes through on the back side. Now we're up on the front right side of the washer. We're going to move the tub around and pull the shock absorber up so we can line up the holes and get the pin in. Same as the one in the back, you want to make sure that the pin goes all the way through and the locking tab is on the other side. Now we can do the one on the left side the same way. Just have to move the tub around and push the shock up into place. Once you have it lined up, you can put the pin through, making sure it goes all the way to the back, and the locking tab comes out. On the top, we're going to reconnect 3 hoses. On these bigger rubber hoses, we're just going to slide them down and use our Phillips screwdriver to tighten up the clamp. The smaller hose that we're going to connect is just an air hose, so all we have to do is push that down into place. And the third hose is the same as the first. We're just going to push it down and tighten up the clamp. We can reach in with our Phillips screwdriver and tighten it down. If the wing nut starts to spin, you can reach in with your other hand and hold it down. All right, on the bottom of the tub in the front, we're going to hook up the wire harnesses for the heater and the thermistor. The red one was on the left one. The yellow one was on the right one. The grounding wire goes there, and then we'll put our nut on and tighten it down. Once you have it on there, we're going to use our 10mm socket to tighten it down. To hook up the thermistor, we're just going to reconnect the wire harness, make sure it locks in, and then we're going to use a zip tie to reconnect the wire harness to the tub. Once you have it tightened down, we can cut it off with the wire cutters. Now we're on the back of the machine. We're going to hook up the tub to pump hose to the tub. All you have to do is line it up and push it up onto the tub fitting. Now we can reach in with our Phillips screwdriver and tighten down the screw. If the wing nut is turning, you have to reach in with your other hand and hold it. Now that we have the clamp on, we can put back in the screws that hold the pressure chamber in place. Now we can hook the stator back up. We're going to just plug in the wire harnesses and make sure they snap into place. Once we have them in place, we can rotate this up. We're going to put in this one bolt to hold it in place while we connect the ground wire and stuff below. All right, first we're going to put in the little plate that holds the wiring harness against the metal backing. Then we can reconnect our grounding wire. And then we can reconnect this little wire harness holder to the bottom of the tub. Now that we have all that connected, we can put in all the bolts that hold this in and tighten them down. Now we can take our 10mm socket and go around and tighten them all down. Now that we have the rotor back on, we can put some blue thread sealer onto the bolt before we put it back in. And then we can use our 17mm socket to tighten it down. Remember, if it starts to spin, you can have somebody hold the inside of the tub so you can tighten it down, tighten it. Now we can put the back panel on. All you have to do is line the tabs up in the bottom and then kind of flex it a little bit to get the tabs to go on the top. And then we can put the 4 screws back in with our Phillips screwdriver. Now we can put the lower and the upper weights back on. We're going to do the lower one first. Set it in place, push it in. And then we can put the screws in and tighten them down with our 10mm socket. The upper one goes on the same way. We're going to step on the front of the tub so we can line it up and put it on. All right, once you have the weight on there, make sure it's seated all the way. We can put our screws in and tighten them down with our 10mm socket. All right, now we can put the front gasket back on. We want to make sure that this little pointer here is right at 12 o'clock, and then we can work it around the tub. It's kind of tough to get the feel of putting the gasket in with gloves on, so we took them off so we could put the gasket in and show you how to do it. And make sure that this is in the groove so we can put the ring clamp on. All right, now that we have it all the way around the groove, we can put the clamp on and get it all the way around. And you want to line it up and you want to get it back over here to the 3 o'clock position. And then we're going to grab our vice grips and lock it onto the spring so we can stretch it up over and put the clamp on. Now that we have the rear clamp on, we can hook up the hoses, however many you happen to have on your machine. Make sure they're on nice and tight. Now we can go ahead and put the front back on. We want to take and set it onto the 3 tabs. And make sure that your hose doesn't get pinched in there. And then we can tilt it up and put in the 4 screws. Next we can put back in this cover assembly. First we can put back in the little screw that holds the front panel to it. Next we can put the trim assembly back in. We want to pull out the drain hose and put it through the hole. Snap it into place. And then we can put the screw back in. We can take the little drain hose and put it in the clip. And then we can put the front access panel on and snap it closed. Now we can reach in behind the door gasket and grab the wire harness and hook it back up to the switch. Pull the gasket out so we can attach it to the front panel. We have to go around and make sure that the gasket is in this groove, so when we put the spring clamp on, it holds it in place. All right, now we can grab the spring clamp, and we want to make sure the spring is down at 6 o'clock. Once we have it stretched around most of the way, we can put the vice grips on and very carefully stretch out the spring and get the clamp the rest of the way around. You want to make sure when you pull back on this that you pull straight back so you're not pulling out and pulling the gasket off. Now that we have it on, we can close the door. Put the console back in. We're going to feed the wires through the hole in the back panel and pull them through, and then we can rotate the panel up into place and snap it in. Now that we have the wires pulled through, we can connect them back to the main wire harness. All you have to do is snap them together and make sure they lock. And then we can reconnect them to the wire harness holders. Now that we have the console on and connected, we can put in the screws that hold the soap dispenser. Then we can put the detergent tray back in. All you have to do is line it up and then push the release lever in so you can slide it all the way in. Now we can put the top on. You want to set it down a little bit back from the front. You want to make sure that the stoppers go into these little cutouts so they can snap into their little grooves. And we can set the top down and push it forward to lock it into place. Now we can put the screws back in that hold the top in place. Now that you're done repairing the appliance, you can plug it back in, turn the water back on, and give it a spin. Thanks for joining us for another successful repair brought to you by AppliancePartsPros.com. Check out our other repair videos on our site, Facebook, and YouTube.